Okay, welcome to a Father's Flame podcast today. I'm excited to introduce my friend Josh Blanchard. He's a business owner. He's been married for 18 years, father of 3 kids. He's over here in the Tri-Cities, Washington, doing great things that I'm excited to hear about and share with you guys. Josh and his wife, Juliana, have a passion to serve the Lord and raise up the next generation of thinkers, of men and women who take ownership of their lives. They've served together mentoring young men and women to live their life's purpose and to learn how to stretch and grow every day. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It's an honor and excited to be here and just value your friendship and super excited to be a part of what you're doing with Father's Flame. And I know it's impacted people and so just excited to add value to what you're doing and add value to whoever's listening. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I'm excited to kind of talk about the fact that you're like a multiple business owner, right? You're not just a guy that owns one business. You're kind of an entrepreneur that you got a few irons in the fire. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey, at least, because I know you didn't start with owning a business, or maybe you did. I'll let you tell your story though.
I grew up with a background where, just like a lot of people, I think I was told just to get a job, find something that you love, and what do you want to be when you grow up? I think everybody's been asked that a million times, and I just find it really hard to really answer that question. I struggle with that. I had a job mentality my whole life. Growing up, my parents were employed, and I grew up in a broken home. My family my mom moved around a lot, so I didn't really have a lot of stability in my life, and so I was very driven, maybe in a negative way, because I wanted to provide for my family one day. I wanted to take care of my mom. I grew up very poor, had to work hard, and so I always worked hard. I always had a job, and I got married young. I got married at 22 to my amazing wife, Juliana, and she is a dreamer, and I was a dreamer to maybe a little bit of extent, but mostly, again, I was running from the nightmare. And they say you're either motivated by the dream or by the nightmare, and for me, it was definitely the survival and the nightmare that drove me every day. And so we got married, and my wife was looking, and she was at Starbucks. She thought we were going to be broke because I was working at construction, delivering pizzas just prior to us getting married. And so she didn't think we were ever going to have any money. She literally sold her Jeep and got a bike and rode her bike to Starbucks. So,
Wow.
So, we had, she came home one day and was like, "Hey, I got this meeting set up with this guy." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So she's like, "Hey, put these clothes on. We need to go meet with this guy." So we go to a Starbucks and meet with this guy that gave us like 15 minutes and was like, "Hey, I know some very successful people, guys that are really doing great things. I'm looking for ambitious people that want more." And I was kind of at a point of like, what's the point of dreaming? My wife wanted to talk about our dreams, our family, our faith, our future, all the things that matter. And I just pushed her away because I was living in quiet desperation. I didn't really see how I could get those things. It seemed like a fake, fluffy cloud that I just couldn't grasp. I just couldn't quite get my hands on it. It wasn't tangible. I didn't have a vision for my life. And so when I had, got around the entrepreneur mindset, was in the network marketing industry, that we went to a meeting, and it's one of the longest network marketing companies been around, and for the last 18 years we've owned an Amway business, and we've built a very successful Amway business, and very different, I think, than a lot of people, than a traditional business, which we own as well. My wife ran a daycare for many years, and I had lost my job when I was, just my first daughter was born 14 years ago. And so we had no income. And so we were going through this crazy struggle. And really the Amway business was the only thing that kept us afloat. We were making like $800 back then. And we were like, man, but we got around some amazing men and women in the Amway business that really mentored us and challenged me to think about my life radically different, and put me in a position to change my whole life, really. I mean, go from what's the point of dreaming to, isn't it better to shoot for a star knowing you'll never hit it because it's impossible to get to the stars, but fail miserably your whole life and hit the moon and do something so much further and so much more beyond what you could comprehend, I think, because you had the willingness to dream and go for something, or have 100% chance of hitting a mud puddle and aim for nothing. And I was aiming for nothing. I was the mud puddle guy going nowhere, and struggling because I was a Christian. I love the Lord, but I wasn't in a position to really see why this life really made a lot of sense and why I could live with purpose and how I could be used. And sometimes people are so heavenly bound, but they're no earthly good. And I think that at the end of the day, God has a plan for us, and the only reason why I'm here is because the Lord has a plan for my life. The Lord has a plan for my wife and our family and our kids, and we want to be used by Him. So
That's good. I mean, it sounds like you got purpose now. Um, I kind of want to dig into the fact that when you're telling all that, a couple things. That the story of your wife like setting up and like pushing you into this like meeting, right? And she's doing some work on your behalf, where you didn't even go this route had she not done what she did. And uh, I just give kind of respect to that a woman really helping her husband and kind of like being that support and I don't know, kind of lifeline to a better future. That is really cool. Uh,
yeah, and I can sit
no,
here and talk about all of the things that I'm the one on the podcast, but really she should be the one on the podcast. I mean, but even as a father's flame, we're talking about like I'm a father. Obviously, I have 3 kids and excited about that, but
yeah,
definitely 100% would not be. I would not be the man I am today. And the Lord knew I was such an idiot that I needed my wife at 22. He brought her in my life and helped me to steer me down that path. And Scripture talks about God being a lamp before our feet, and sometimes you can't see that far, but He does give you that next step. He lights up that next step, and so we're faithful to that. We just kept following those steps, and we had a lot of opposition, we had a lot of challenges, we had a lot of hardships, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of learning lessons along the way. But it's been fun. It's been a great journey.
yeah. I think marriage is kind of like that though, where it's pretty exciting in the beginning, and then there's stuff coming that you guys it's going to be tough, right? There's something has to pop up that's going to be tough. And so, yeah, choosing that right mate, having that right person. And sometimes, it's who God brought your way, Lord. Like we weren't super wise. We just kind of picked the best looking girl you could get at and it just works out because of their character.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I say all the time, like if there was 100 women in a line, if God would have let me choose, I would have picked the wrong woman, because
Yeah.
I just don't think that I didn't realize what I needed as much as the Lord really knew what I needed. And there was so many more things. Um, yeah, I probably get emotional about this one. But like, man, she just has believed in me, and you know, vulnerability. Uh, there's a lot of challenges along the way, growing up the way I did. You know, not bonded with your parents, like in survival mode all the time, and so, she just stuck through. We've been married almost 19 years now, and so that's all. This really, the life is all we've known is working together, having a family vision for our life instead of a division. Where I think a lot of people, the couples, go the opposite directions. And they spend 40, 50 hours a week going this direction, and 40, 50 hours a week going that direction, and they don't really understand how to get on a same page, row in the same direction, and fight together. And sometimes you have metal clashing, but we're both a little stubborn, and so I think after a while, enough friction creates fusion, and we welded ourselves together pretty good here. So
That's awesome. Well, let's dig more into, you're talking about vision right there. And I caught that right after the intro, when we were talking, is you seem like a man of vision, a man of purpose, a man that's like moving forward, you know, going forward. And then you told your story where you said you're the guy, like you said something about like the mud puddle guy. You're not looking real far. It's not real clear. Right. So what happened from Josh, age 22, to Josh, now, because it seems like you got the vision thing. So what changed and how did you get to where you're at?
yeah, I spent probably 6 years. I was inspired like 18 years ago when we started our business. But growth is a process. It's not a destination. It's, it's really the success that we have become through this process is the win, right? Like the transformation, not the transactional thing of like, oh yeah, I made so much money, or yes, we have this house, or yes, my marriage is great, but it's this process of transformation, in my leadership, transformation, everything. And I got around some very, very successful business people in the Amway business, and pastors. And there was a gentleman named Paul Sika and his son, and they had a organization called Restoration Ranch, and he was an evangelist for many years. And I was struggling for 6 years. I was hearing the Lord say, quit. And just this, small voice. And, I'm sure a lot of people that listen aren't Christians, which is fine. But, but I became a Christian at 19, and God really just started to move in my life and work in my life, and brought Juliana in my life through, the next door neighbor, professional golfer that mentored me. And that's how I met Juliana. Her dad was a pastor, on and on. But the vision process was probably the most life-changing, and something I teach all the time. And I'm super passionate about helping people understand, how do you develop a vision? I had a very successful person in my life say, Josh, the greatest use of your life is that you so live your life so that the use of your life outlives your life. And that quote has stuck with me, and it's a legacy, right? And how do you make a difference, and with the use of your life? And he broke down something. He goes, Josh, success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal, accompanied with a growing sense to do something about it. And I remember listening to that going, man, what's this guy talking about? Is, success is a progressive realization. Is this guy on drugs? Like, like I didn't understand what progressive, but when I got around these guys more, they just said, look, you got to turn your dream into a vision. And the more I got around them, the more it actually started to make sense. And I was sitting down with this pastor, really, really frustrated. And I felt like I was in this situation. Maybe you've been there. You've gone to different conferences and you get motivated, right? And then all of a sudden you peter out because your motivation is struggling. You don't know why. You're just kind of like up and then down, and then up and then down, and then up and then down. And I kind of thought of it as like a car that doesn't have an engine. And it's going up this hill. And I got around things that motivated me, people that motivated me, business environments that motivated me. I would go to leadership conferences and read books. But then there would become a point where I would go through all the struggle, and then I would just feel like, okay, I'm motivated. So it's kind of going downhill and everything's awesome. And then all of a sudden now I'm not motivated. And now it just feels impossible to do this. And I felt just like a wimp and pathetic, and I can't do this. And I struggled with, man, do I have what it takes to build this business and be successful, or build any business, lead my family for that matter, lead anybody? I don't feel like I can lead myself, let alone another human being. And so I was working hard, but I was going nowhere. I would go up and down, up and down. And I sat down with this pastor guy, and he says, look, Josh, it sounds to me like you don't have your VVSG figured out. And I remember thinking, what the heck's VVSG? And he goes, most people focus on strategies and goals because that's what the world teaches. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, now what do you got to do to get there? So create a strategy and create a goal. But they always focus on just making money or just what you do, instead of how do you want to live your life? And then reverse engineer that, figure, okay, now how much time and money does it take to get there? But to me, even hearing that wasn't enough. It was when this guy really gave me the ability to like what you talk about in the core values of your podcast, your faith, your family, your finances. I take it further, call it 7 F's: your faith, your finances, your fitness, your future, your friendships, your fun, like your family. Like those are all the things that matter. And so imagine like if, you had a puzzle. And so behind me, there's that B in this, or let's just say that, there's not a picture, but let's just say there's a picture and it's broken up into a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. These guys go, look, you need to figure out what is your values. So the first V is values, and the values are the building blocks and the key to developing a vision, because your vision isn't just segmented. It's not just one part of your life. It's holistic. And until we can put all those pieces together into one place, there's no way to create a vision unless you can keep all those things as part of that vision. And then not only take a list of all your values. So what he had me do is he goes, look, Josh, I want you to make a list. I want you to make a list of like 20, 30, 40 things that you value in your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness, your future, your fun, and just write them out. Like I value being, debt free. I value, growth. I value, moving forward, and I value, prosperity, and being successful, and not just being broke. Like I've had a lot of my Christian friends that say, hey, Josh, money don't make you happy, and a lot of other people in the world. And it's like, yeah, but being broke don't make you happy. So money to life is like breathing is, like money to success, like breathing is to life. It's just necessary. It's not even like something we should argue about. It's like, you just need money to survive. So the question is, are you living out of the values and vision of your life? Because that's actual success. And so when you can put those core values, and so you break those down and you narrow those down into a much simpler, a handful of those values, and you could even make it as simple as, faith, finances, fitness. But I really think continue to really make that really, really, really clear in our minds, and then write out a vision statement, write out like, what are both you and your wives, and you're married. And so I always recommend husband and wives do this separately, and then come together and then get that list together and say, okay, how do we align with these values? What is our family vision going to look like based off our family values and our personal values individually? And now let's bring those together and go, okay, and how are we going to create a vision so we can lead our families together?
That's good. I like it because, when someone first told me about faith, family, finances, and fitness, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a nice, simple way to put something to focus on. But even what I've found is that although those are good like categories, like there is almost this missing piece of like, well, how do you implement that? And what you're talking about, like the vision, and making that list, we ended up doing that as a family, and I kind of led that. And it was like, that was a piece that kind of was needed. And I need to go back to that. But I think that is wise in being able to take other people with you, because that's what a dad's doing, really, or a father, a man, because you're taking your wife on this vision that you see, or maybe you both see it, and you both created it. But now you got to bring like these kids into it as well. And so I like that you added even future and fun, because I think there's that aspect of fatherhood that it's almost eternal, right? But it's like, you got to think years down the road. And I don't think our society is geared that way, where we're thinking multi-generational, right? I just had a guest on talking about that. And really biblically, like we were talking about the promises to Abraham, he didn't see a lot of those promises in his lifetime. He saw a few, but what really came later was the descendants that were like the sand of the sea. Like that's just massive, right? And all the world was going to be blessed because of him. And he just didn't get to see it all in his lifetime. So I like that you're saying that there's a future, right? And
100%.
And you said a quote too, or let like your life outlive your own life. That's huge. So, is there more to like, go ahead.
To add there was a gentleman that said something, and I just want to say this because you're talking about fatherhood, and my wife and I just were very blessed to hear this, because it changed how we looked at raising our kids. And they go, Josh, you don't have children that you're raising. And that's how most people look at their kids. They're looking at them as kids, as children. And this gentleman was, very, very successful. And he goes, Josh, you are raising adults passing through childhood. They are an adult for 80+% of their life. And he goes, you have to look at them as adults passing through childhood and mentor them where they can understand you. But you have to mentor them and lead by your example. Lead with the values that you have. Live the life that and we attend our kids' sports things, and we do things with our kids. But I think so many people live for their kids and their kids are their vision, instead of creating a vision for their family, and the parents are the ones that are leading the charge of saying, this is where the family's headed. And it's not always fun, and it's not always pleasant, and it's going to suck sometimes, and you're going to have to work hard, and the kids are going to have to make sacrifices just like the parents are. And you know what? This isn't all about you. You're going to have to realize that this isn't all about us. This is about us serving the Lord and doing something beyond us and having a vision that goes beyond us as people and us as a family. And that changed our life too. Just having somebody just take us to a different level, and show us really what's, I think, super important when it comes to being a father, which is, I think a lot of fathers don't lead by example. They talk about it and they tell their kids basically to shut up and do what they're told, but they're not actually showing them, because they don't have a vision. And because they don't have a vision, how do they teach something that they don't have? And so their kids flounder and struggle.
That's interesting.
And I'm not perfect at it, so please, anyways, that's.
I was about to ask you, Josh, how did you perfectly implement this? No.
What was that?
No, I'm just joking. I said, Josh, how did you perfectly implement this?
Yeah.
But let's get into that a little bit. Like, how do you practically, like, let's just take a guy that has never heard this before. What's his next step? You said, you had faith, family, finance, fitness, future, fun. Make a list, right, of what you value. Okay, then what? What's the next part?
Yeah, and then I would say, like I said, write it on a big whiteboard, right? Like, get your family together and ask them what like, write out the vision. I really think the husband and wife should write the vision out, because I think, again, most time the kids, they don't see that far. They're not looking at life. It's all about them, right? Like, as your kid, like, they never go, hey, can I go do something for you, Dad? It's like, hey, I'm hungry, I want this. Like, kids are dependent, which there's a reason why God wants us to be childlike, which is to trust in our heart and rely on Him. But I think that, to implement that, getting that vision statement written down based off those core values, and really create something that you can then go to your family and have a meeting with your family and say, okay, family, kids, I want you guys to understand this is where we're headed. And every decision that we're going to make in this family is going to be in line with that path, because that determines the path. So the vision gives you the path. It gives you guardrails, right? So like when you're going down the road, there's guardrails, and so it keeps you in line, right? Like there's a mention that was in our life that talked about true north. There's magnetic north and there's true north, and it's so easy just to get a little off path, and before you know it, 5 years down the road, people are like, we're not in love anymore. We don't have, like they go do stupid stuff and they make bad decisions, and so what makes us continually progress down this path in a way that keeps us in line with what we say is everything that is important to us, because the values determine everything that's core that would die for. So I would even simplify it even further and break it down and go, like, what would you lay your life down for? What is so important to you that it's non-negotiable? Those are core values. You create the vision statement, then you start to implement that by reverse engineering that and getting to the SG, which is strategies and goals.
So tell us more about the strategies and goals then.
So strategies, I think, are based off whatever. I would recommend get some mentorship that people have gone down that path. Now that you have established the vision and you can look at that, you can now reverse engineer and start looking for mentorship. Say, who has the fruit on the tree that I'm looking for? Because everything rises and falls on leadership. That's what John Maxwell talks about, the greatest leadership author in the world. I just had a blessing to be around him last weekend. I was up in Boise, Idaho, and at a leadership conference with John Maxwell, and it was incredible. And I've been blessed within the organization Worldwide Group that we've been around for 18 years, that he's come in every single year for a leadership conference. And I've read a lot of his books. And anyways, but the strategies, you have to find people. You are who you associate with. Show me your mentor. I'll show you your future. Most people can't find a mentor because they don't know what they're looking for. When you know where you're headed, it's easy to look for people that have fruit on that tree. You're like, oh, if I'm looking for apples, you're not going to sow corn seeds. And so you got to find people that can shed their seed in your life so you can learn how to plant the right seed and create those strategies and goals based off things that are in line with people that have done those things before, right? Like if I'm going to build a pool company, I'm not going to go listen to somebody that's never built a pool company. I might listen to them in regards to success principles, but when it comes to actual application of something, I'm looking for specifics. Okay, how do I create a strategy in that specific area?
That's good. And that's what you're actually doing. Most people don't know. Josh just launched a pool company in the last, I don't know, couple months or a year or so. But
That's been a year.
yeah, been a year. So I want to go back first. I mean, we'll talk about that. But you said strategy, and in that get mentorship. And there's something about you that I haven't. I mean, of all the people I know, I've never heard someone talk so much about like their mentors and multiple people even mentoring you and speaking into your life. And I would say that's probably part of the culture I know of the Amway and the worldwide group. But that is something that really stands out about you. Like even people in business, like don't have that many different people pouring into them over time. So that really shows, and that organization, can have that good or bad rap, that it has in the past from different people, but there's definitely a lot of good fruit also, and a lot of successful people. So,
Yeah.
You mentoring, I say a lot coaching, right? Like get coaches because there's coaches to help you in every aspect of life, really. Saying look for the mentors, look for people that have already lived out or um, experienced the success in the areas that you want. And that's what you're saying. So do you think a lot of men are even seeking mentors? Like, are they, you know what I mean? Like it just, that sounds good, but do guys
It's
really do it?
vulnerable, right? Because if you're going to trust somebody enough to open your heart to them, you have to be willing to get hurt. You have to be, because I've had people walk in my life, walk out of my life. I've had people hurt me. I've had mentors stab me in the back and try to destroy my whole business. And that was very destructive, and it was very, very difficult to forgive and move on. And that was a journey that was very, very deeply rooted in my childhood, which is people abandoning me and leaving. And so finding mentors, you're going to get hurt. Like you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And I sometimes joke around, but my superpower is being vulnerable. But I never was that vulnerable to really allow my wife super close or feel, anyways, I can get in a whole nother thing of like,
Well,
3 years of
vulnerable
counseling.
in like what? Yeah, but vulnerable to them in what, right? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Just saying, here's looking for those people who have it, and then willing to ask for help, willing to say, hey, like, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not the man. Put my ego aside, my pride, and say, like, I actually could use some help in my life. Could you please help me? You look like you have the fruit on the tree in this area. And you're going to have the reason I have different mentors and lots of people I surround myself with is because there's not one mentor in my life that has it all figured out. And I don't have it all figured out. I have strengths and I have
That's good.
weaknesses. So I look for people that have strengths and that can lead me spiritually. And the ones that can lead me spiritually typically aren't the ones that are going to lead me in business. Now, sometimes they're both, but you look for people like, I don't listen to my pastor about finances because he's not a successful entrepreneur. So why would I listen to him about how to be successful financially and be debt free and create wealth and generational wealth if he's never done it? And I'm not judging him. I'm not mad at him. I love my pastor. He's amazing. But you have to be a little subjective and understand that, do they have the fruit on the tree in that area that I'm looking for mentorship? And I believe you need mentorship in all areas.
I am 100% glad you said it that way. Like you don't go to the plumber for your, you know what I mean? Like financial advice per se, right? Let their expertise kind of come out. So this is good. And this was for me, the same thing was kind of a turning point when I was like challenge to go find someone that has the success in that certain area, right? And this led me into entrepreneurship, and go, like, the strategy was just go work for them for free, right? Someone said, or, if you can't get a paid position, just get around them, just so that you
Yeah.
can, like, learn from them. You have access to them, and you're actually giving them a value, like helping grow their business or doing something. Because unless it's like just on their heart for some reason to serve you for no reason, which it probably isn't, like, why would they spend time doing that? So do you find that, like, there has to a lot of mentorship, like there's some kind of reciprocal benefit, like you would go work for them or bring some benefit? I'm sure it's across the board different,
Yeah,
but
I mean, Jeff, and I love your story. I mean, I know it, on some level, and I know that, you've made major change in your life because of people that you've sought out and you've got around them and paid them. And most people are going to have to pay for mentorship. If you're not going to pay for it financially, you're going to pay for it with your time. You're going to pay with some way. You're going to invest. You got to be willing to invest into people. And I think that, and it obviously comes back to, like, but most business people that I know have to pay lots and lots and lots of money, 10, 20, 40, 50, $100,000 for really amazing mentorship. I've been very blessed in the Amway business where they mentored me, and the only way they won was if I succeeded. And really, they had everything to lose. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And again, that's what makes that, I think, it's such an incredible opportunity for people that aren't really an entrepreneur. They don't think like that. I'd have to quit my job, and I was able to get around people, and they taught me how to think like a successful person. I think success is like a language. Okay. I have a lot of people that I work with and people that have been around in our area here that speak Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. So a lot of times it's like, I don't know what they're talking about. Right. So, I believe we are taught a language financially. I call it, the difference between, brokenese and wealthinese. And brokenese is
that's
where
good.
people where people are taught to think like an employed person, to take, they're selfish. It's all about them. It's find something you love, find whatever fulfills you, do what makes you happy. And people that are wealthy, I thought, these people think totally different. They literally, everything they do, it is because they think different. And you can't learn a language in a day. You have to be immersed in it. You have to be around people that think differently for a long period of time. Like, that's why mentorship is so important. And that's why finding people that would be willing to add value to you and fight for it and beg and plead and claw and pay them, and like, find people. And I think that over time you can. I took 2 years of Spanish, and I can't speak Spanish today in high school. But if I was
Yeah.
immersed into a Spanish-speaking country for 2 years, I guarantee I'd be speaking way more Spanish than I speak right now. Right now, it's un poquito español, and if I was in a foreign country that's all they spoke is Spanish, and so I immersed myself in people that were successful, and surrounded myself with people where I could learn that language. And it's a transformational process to learn a language. You totally change the way that you look at the world. And pretty soon it goes from being a cognitive thing that you have to focus on to a subconscious thing where it becomes who you are. And success is the same way, right? Success as a father. I mean, there was things my wife would be like, why don't you think about this stuff? And I'm like, I'm supposed to think about this stuff? Because I was never around men that love their kids, and like I was never around people that like I just didn't have that example as a father. I didn't have somebody in my life. I met my dad when I was 19, and he was abusive and beat the heck out of my mom. And my mom jammed out when I was 2 from Oklahoma to Seattle, and I had a stepdad, and she went through 5 marriages, and I just remember getting married, going, this is cool. I'm excited about my wife, but I am freaking out about this thing called being a father because I have no clue how I'm going to do it. Like, and anyways, so.
No, that's good. It just reminds me how much of different backgrounds men come from, like different homes, different upbringings. But what I really want to point out is that you could see that though your life was the way it was growing up, like you're still able to accomplish and get to places that, right, you own, two businesses, you're scaling things, you have a family, successful family and marriage, um, and it didn't matter kind of where you came from. And to me, that's a big testimony of what God's done in your life. But also that mentorship, which I imagine a lot of those mentors probably had God in their life, you know, um, maybe not all of them, but
Yeah, definitely not all of them, but I learned things from them, and like I said, I would always take it with a grain of salt and filter through. Is this line with my values? And that's another important thing. I think a lot of times we can get manipulated by people because we look at them as God, and put them on a throne in our life, and they're not supposed. Men are not supposed to be on the throne of our heart, and we need to put our trust in the Lord and not into another person. But we can glean wisdom from them, but we need I personally believe, and this is my opinion, but I believe that we need to filter every decision and everything somebody may ask us to do as a mentor through that filter of, does that align with my values? And is that, for me, biblical? Like, why would I do that? Right. Like, so, again, it's kind of those checks and balances. Cause I think I've been manipulated by men where I trusted them and allowed them to blindly lead me, if you will, because I was just hanging on to every word they said because I respected what they had accomplished. But that doesn't mean that what they were doing and what they wanted me to do was what I should be doing. And the Lord really made me go through some seasons where I was very broken, and I had to learn really hard, difficult lessons on that. As just because they're a mentor in my life in a certain area doesn't mean that I just take everything as gospel.
great point on that. It's like a child, like they may mimic, like sometimes if you get a mentor, like, look, you just need to copy what they're doing just because you need to start there because you're doing a lot of things wrong. You're not thinking right.
Right.
But almost like how a kid matures, and it's like eventually you kind of make your own decisions, and then you kind of get away and see if you could stand on your own 2 feet and, go on some adventure, but still have access to the mentor, but don't rely upon them, to like completely, of course.
Yeah.
But
One thought real quick on that. I was so insecure about who I was, and I think everybody will do that. They'll mimic people. They will look up to people, and that's fine. I think that's how we start. But I think that we have to learn to not just take what people are giving us and copy them and, regurgitate it. I look at it as, okay, I've taken all this information from mentors, and I can either just regurgitate that and try to be like them and puke this back on other people, which they're going to go, man, this guy's inauthentic. It's something off. He's trying too hard, versus taking in all those things that you're learning from those mentors and process it. And then it comes out smelling like you, right? You got to digest it. You got to take that in. And then what comes out on the other end is a transformational, like a butterfly going through this process of actually on the other side of that, becoming the version the Lord wants you to become.
so good. There's, in some ways you could say there's nothing new under the sun, right? The Ecclesiastes talks about that. And it's a lot of things are just people like repackaging, but with your own words, right? And it may, the way you experience something and then teach others may just make more of an impact than what someone else who's done something similar, right? And it's just about kind of getting your voice out there, and playing your part. So I like that. That's good. So the VVSG, values, vision, strategy, and goals. No, I like that. I think it really is. It kind of adds to what my podcast is about too. Like there's just a different way of implementing. You need to have a strategy. You need to have implementation, and even just fatherhood is literally not just about you, right? But a lot weighs on you for the success of your family, right? Like you can partake, you can do a good job, or your kids don't get any other dad, so like you are the epitome of what they're going to have. That's it, unless they they get step parents or whatever it is. But and I think in my mind, it's like, well, then why not give your kids, be the guy that really launches them and into the next level that you never maybe got to because of your upbringing. But
yeah, I would look at it as standing on your shoulders instead of saying, well, if you're as good as me, kids, one day you could be like me. That's an
sure.
ego. That's an ego-driven man versus somebody that says, hey, you know what? I'm gonna lay my life down and I'm gonna build something so generationally so that you can stand on my shoulders and do something that I couldn't even possibly comprehend because of the foundation I gave you, and give them wings to do greater things and roots to be stable and the values and the vision that you have as a family. But then they can take that and really soar to a level. And that's really what we should be doing. That's biblical. And the Lord wants us to take care of a generation ahead of us, our kids, and a generation behind us, take care of our parents. And so, I think that, if we're living our life serving the Lord and sometimes again, it's hard. I mean, again, but the Lord's never going to give us what we can't handle. And he's with us, right? Like I cling to Joshua 1:8 and 1:9. It's like my name, but it's the first verse the Lord used to really grab me, probably because I was selfish and in my own little, like, oh, my name's in the Bible, and it's be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Don't be dismayed, for this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. Then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. The success and prosperity is rooted in meditating on what the Lord wants for our life. And so, that's again really in line with that VVSG, right? Like we put the Lord first and everything else is added to us. Like we keep in perspective what true success is, which is the vision, not the strategies and not the goals. It doesn't matter how far along that path you get, Jeff, right? Like somebody can go, okay, well, I ask a question all the time. Like when will you be successful? Like, when will you be successful? Dash, fill it in. When I'm a great dad, when I'm a great husband, when I have financial independence, when I finally achieve this in my business, when I finally have an amazing wife, when I finally have an amazing husband, when I finally do this and accomplish that. And you can put anything in that little space. And I think at the end of that, you're going to then go, okay, let's say you accomplish every single one of those things. The problem with if you just have strategy and goals, it stops short of what I believe really matters, because you're going to go, then what? What are you living for? So now you have no motivation. You're completely lost and that's, I believe, why most people have midlife crisis in their life, is because they don't understand their motivation. They don't understand the relationship with motivation. And they live their life for those goals, and they either don't accomplish them and then feel like crap and they feel like a loser and feel like nothing, and it attacks their self-image, or they accomplish everything and they feel better than everybody and amazing, but then they go, but now what? And I believe when you get that VVSG figured out, you live a life, like you talked about in the very beginning, of purpose that is full of motivation, that is full of drive, that is generational. It doesn't matter how far along that path you get, or if I die today, I die success because I'm on the right path. That to me is what this is all about.
So how does I think a lot of guys have like the intention, like you said, hey, I want my children on my shoulders, and you're going to go reach stuff I never did. Right. But then actually implementation, kind of like what you just got done saying. How does a guy go from the intention, which I think a lot of men have good intentions, but their implementation of it sucks. So, the VVSG, I get that. Yeah. So can you still see me?
What was that?
Can you still see me? My monitor just went off.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag, but I think we're good.
Okay. So how do you go from, we all have like that intention, right? Almost every guy has the intention, right? To what are some steps a guy needs to like really implement that?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to just start, right? Like I would write this list down and not procrastinate it. John Maxwell says the greatest gap in success is the difference between knowing and doing. There's a lot of people that have knowledge, and people that listen to your podcast, they might listen to a 50 podcast and they have all this knowledge in their head, but it's never great and unless it's applied, right? Like, and so we have to be willing to get into moving, you know, take the next step. Like, and you can only take one step, right? That's again, what I was saying earlier, the lamp before your feet. Like, the Lord is going to direct you to take that next step and be faithful with what you've been given. Don't be worried about the 50th step from now. Don't worry about all the things that you have to do and freak out about, okay, well, what about this? And what if I quit my job and start my business, but I don't have enough money? And what if it fails? And what if, I mean, who cares? First of all, it's all the Lord, so it doesn't matter. That's what makes entrepreneur life interesting, because it's not mine. I'm going to lose anything of it. So it's already God's anyway. So I'm just being faithful with what he's been giving me. And I believe live an entrepreneur life like you do. We've talked about this, that you have the ability to make such an impact in people's lives because you're leading, and you have the ability to have influence in their life and your values that you get to put out in the world versus somebody else's, and just doing what somebody else wants you to do for a paycheck. It's harder. There's no question about that. It's more stressful, but so I would say make the next step to answer the question. My answers are long. I apologize.
That's okay, dude. And, from my perspective, like, I love that you said, create like the values, just write them down. Like, and sometimes we think we have them in our head. We think we're teaching them to our kids. But your actual implementation of passing on what you know and what you value is not that good. And I'm saying that from a place of experience. And that's why, anyways, I love things like this, because you can write this down and you can implement it today. And if you've already have like core values, you already have the vision, well, now, like Josh is saying, just take the next step. Like, go back to your strategy. Then how do you actually do that? Like with your family though. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, yeah, we have the values, we have the visions, and I think I need to revamp it again. It's been like a year, and just kind of fine tune it a little bit, and work back to the implementation, the strategy section. So,
and put stuff around you. Like, in the Amway business, I've always had mentors that say, you got to put your dream in front of you. You got to be always thinking about it and visualizing it and writing it down. And the Lord says, write down your vision on tablets so it's clear, and so everybody can see it and know it. And I think so many times we don't write things down and put those values on. My wife's amazing. She has some here, everywhere around me. Like, she's always putting down, like signs that say stuff about our values, and, making a difference and impact, and, scripture and things that align with who we are. So everywhere you go, and you're always thinking about it, like companies have mission statements and value statements that they put on the wall. Well, why wouldn't you as a family? Why wouldn't you put that up on your wall and say, this is what we stand for, make it look cool? My wife would never put anything cheesy on the wall, so she's the one in charge of it. But it's got to be in front of us, right? Like, you got to saturate yourself with the stuff that we're talking about. You can't just like hear one podcast and then expect to change. Like, you gotta make these little implementations, and it's a process. Be patient with yourself and forgive yourself, and don't beat yourself up so much, right? Like, I think as well, we shut down as men because we want to win and we want to be perfect, and then we fail. So then we stop dreaming, we stop talking about it, we stop talking to our wives about it because we feel like we suck and we're losers. And so then we don't get vulnerable and talk about how we really feel. And then it leads to us isolating ourselves. And then it leads to us being in a position where we don't communicate with our wives. And then we just start to slowly drift apart again. And we have to watch that, in my opinion. I have to watch that all the time. Like, I'm really bad at that. And that's something that I'm constantly trying to be aware of. Like, hey, am I pushing my wife away because I'm feeling insecure about myself? And it's not about me. So why am I worried about it? Like, my wife loves me the most when I'm vulnerable. And I hate being vulnerable and wimpy feeling.
Whew. Yeah, there's a lot to chew on there. I think vulnerability is. Did you say that was your superpower? What did you say was your superpower earlier?
About it, but it's how the Lord has used me in so many people's lives, and He's asked me to share my story with people in a very raw, radical, like, here it is, like, just half the time I don't even know those people when the Lord is asking me to share with people about my past. And I've just seen a lot of cool things happen through the vulnerability. And so, yeah, I just really love going deep with people. And I think somebody's got to be willing to be vulnerable for a relationship to go deep. You can't have a deep relationship with the kids if you're always being prideful and bossing them around as a dad. You have to be vulnerable with them and know that they really can relate with you and understand, like, hey, just because you're their dad doesn't mean you have it all figured out, right? Just because you're a dad doesn't mean you can't share some of your failures with them. Like John Maxwell says, people never learn anything from their successes, but they do learn a lot from their failures, or they don't, because, they don't evaluate their failures. But we only learn from failures if there's ever an opportunity to learn. And our kids are going to relate with our failures more than they will with our successes. And I am guilty of looking at my kids sometimes going, well, you can do this. Come on. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, hurry up, figure it out. Let's do this. And sometimes we expect them to be like us when they haven't gone through those failures yet. They haven't gone through the journey and the struggle. And so, just being like, hey, you know what? Dad struggles with that too. I'm not always good at this. So be willing to, push through and get back up, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to fail. Like, failure isn't final unless we accept it as final, right? Like, it's part of success. Success is failing as fast as we can, like as often as we can. And I hate that. I truly do. That's probably the part of success I hate the most. I wish, think of the word success, it's like suck. You got to suck. And then finally, like, oh, look, I'm successful, like 10 years of sucking. And then finally everything looks like it came out of nowhere, but it's, I'm an overnight success. It took me 18 years to get here.
Well, I think there's just aspects of that, like other entrepreneurs, they already know, like, hey man, you're going to make it if you just stick with it, keep going. Right. And then, sometimes, not every time, but like in the, like having a job arena is, failure isn't a good thing when you have a job, because now you don't have a job. And then you go to get another one, and your previous job, they're going to call them and be like, how was he as an employee? Oh gosh, he was this, and it's like failure there is not good, but failure in the mindset of an entrepreneur or someone who's going to get up again and keep going is a good thing, because you just learn from it, right? It's not devastating. So I love that you brought out that point about what failure is, because really it's needed. And so don't look down on failure. Just
embrace it.
It's what you do after it. Yeah. Embrace it. And then what do you do after that? So, well, Josh, I know I could just talk to you obviously for a long time, and we hardly even got into all the things that we probably could get into over. Maybe we're just gonna have to have you back on, but I'd like you to share how people can either, if something you said just impacted them, they want to reach out, how can people find you?
Yeah. They can contact us, on our website, at my pool company, radiantbuilders.com, and reach out that way. They can, we got different social media. I think you'll have some stuff on the links here, but, my email, changingyourstars@gmail.com. They could email me just saying, hey, I love what I heard. And, I always want to inspire people, encourage people. And, one of the things that my wife and I do is, and there's a season where I struggle with it, but our life is not ours. And, we want to live a life of significance, which is beyond us. And that takes us taking our eyes off ourselves and serve other people. Right. And I ask different questions nowadays when I invest into people, because not everybody wants your time. Not everybody wants to actually listen. And I think a lot of people, value success, but again, we also have to have participate in that and change and grow. So I always ask questions: does this person want to change and grow and do more with their life? And would that be a worthy investment of my time? Because I feel like to get the greatest use out of your life, you got to live your life so that the use of your life outlives your life. So if somebody isn't willing to take that time I can invest it into somebody else, I'm going to invest in somebody else that actually wants it, right? That they're going to go create 100 times results hundredfold based off what I'm pouring into their life, right? The seeds I'm sowing in their life. I want to see them grow, have amazing marriage, right? And so, anyways, but
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing part of your story, part of what you've learned, over the years. And for everybody, just, if you got some value out of this, share this with somebody if you think they need to hear the message, right? Click that like button, comment, subscribe, and share this out. And I just want to remind you guys, put a little bit of effort in today that's going to pay off, when you look back in a year. That says, they'll make you want to say, hey, I'm so glad I took those steps. I'm so glad I went from just having good intentions to I actually did it. I implemented it, so areas of faith, family, finances, and fitness. Josh added your future, think about your future, and fun. And then he shared with you guys the VVSG, values, vision, strategies, goals. That just looks like a slam dunk right there if you actually implemented it. So, Josh, we appreciate you sharing that. And everyone on the podcast, go out there, make those changes, and we're going to catch you on the next one.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate it. Love you, man. Thanks for having me on. And it was definitely my